So it's all to play for still.
I think so. Do you want to bet against us?
Hi, villains, and welcome to For the Love of Paul McGrath podcast. And I must say, I'm really, really excited about this one because I'm delighted to be joined by Jacob TANSWELL from The Athletic, who's doing some absolute Trojan work over there and following, or should I say, and reporting on Aston Villa over the last, following them around the country and through Europe is what I was going to say, but mostly reporting on Aston Villa this year for The Athletic. And firstly, Jacob, thank you so much for your time today and welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me. I know we're going to delve into the tactical side of Villa and everything else. So, yeah, as a geek myself, I'm looking forward to it.
Well, I used to call myself a geek about this stuff, about doing scouting series and things like that. And then I went, I don't know, am I geek if I'm waking up at 3 o'clock most mornings to look after kids and then have nothing to do while trying to cradle them to sleep? So maybe I'm just being time efficient is what I'm trying to convince myself I am at the moment, as opposed to being geeky about it, Jacob. But I'm really looking forward to delving into this. And I'm going to title this show, well, you guys will already have seen it if you clicked on the link, but I'm going to title this show The Complete Guide to Aston Villa's Tactics with Jacob TANSWELL. So if you've fallen for the clickbait, it ain't my fault, okay? Although we will get into, I suppose, really what I feel, I suppose, are the four key aspects I think that Unai Emery has implemented since he's come in here. And Jacob, it's really interesting because I think Muller Wolf, the AZ left back, probably summed it up as succinctly as I've heard it so far. And he said that we knew what was, I'm paraphrasing, but he essentially said, we knew it was coming and we couldn't stop it. And it was a case whereby, you know, they've fallen victim, I suppose, of Aston Villa twice in such short succession. And he's had a hard night on both nights as well because of the way that Aston Villa play. And I think that's really, that was a real kind of, I think it's a compliment, I suppose, more so. It's probably the highest compliment that you could probably pay a team in a lot of aspects, because if they were well drilled, and their manager is no Mo Guider, Pascal Janssen is a good manager as well, highly sought after, very technically and tactically astute, you know. But Unai Emery has molded this team into a nice little machine. And I think the biggest thing, I suppose, really, and we'll start off with this one, Jacob, is that I don't think anybody's ever mentioned anything about it. So this might be the first time anyone has ever spoken about this in an Unai Emery team. But did you know that Aston Villa play a high line, Jacob? Have you ever heard anyone mention that before?
Something covered very much. People don't seem to talk about it. Well, the wider public anyway. When Villa lose, I think it's when they win, it's some sort of mystery secret, isn't it? So
yeah,
very high.
But I think one of the biggest things is that, like, the high line to a lot of people, as you said there, yes, it was spoken about in the aftermath of the Nottingham Forest game, and I suppose let's kind of use that as our template, I suppose, because that's the more that the way that Nottingham Forest kind of attacked us in spaces with regards to Elanga being on that left wing and attacking Matty Cash. I think that's the way most teams will do it. And that's when Fulham got their goal at the weekend as well. You know, playing that ball over the top, hugging Matty Cash on the left-hand side, and Raul Jimenez obviously going through the centre. So realistically speaking, I suppose that when you see that I suppose that take, or that journalistic take afterwards, the Villa's highline caught them out in that instance. Why do you think it is that nobody ever mentions that it's a well-drilled backline that can come up in unison, catch teams offside? We've caught teams offside more than any other team in Europe this season, albeit Las Palmas are the same as us, but have played 2 games more than us. Why do you think Villa don't get that kind of plaudit?
I think unless you're covering Aston Villa from a media standpoint every week, you probably just watch highlights or you watch the goals they concede and you think, oof, it's risky. You probably don't look at every occasion that Villa catch someone offside, because it's within a game. Very rarely do, as every journalist, watch every single minute of a Villa game. So you probably just look at one goal where it's malfunctioned and you think, this is rubbish. Let's watch match of the day. They're going to draw how much space there is and they're going to say how bad it is. I think you need to understand the purpose of things. And I think that's where where punditry and some journalists sometimes don't quite grasp it. They just look on the surface level and think that's not how it should be done, like this. But they don't understand how Emery or a coach has got to that point of implementing the high line. Because I'm sure Emery's not the type of guy that's thinking, oh, should we just do a high line? Like, he's probably thought about it, but a bit deeper than that. Sometimes I myself, I admit the outcome of our game, I was sat next to John Townley from Birmingham Live, and I said, sometimes can Villa just tailor the high line a little bit? Because I thought the only way Kamara are going to score is probably through the ball over the top. If Villa just a couple of yards back, I don't think they had the ingenuity to thread it through, break the team down. I thought maybe sometimes you could tailor it a little bit, but I guess if you do tailor it, then it might get a bit confusing or things like that, and it doesn't quite work in the same rhythm. So I understand why Villa do it. I think it works really good, but also it is also quite a good energy saver as well, because I know the defenders have got to recover and sprint back, but Douglas Luiz, Kamara, whoever's in midfield has got less space to cover because the distance between the back line and the attacking the attack's shorter. Everything's a lot more compact, and teams can't play through you. And the only way they can do it is probably just long balls over top. And sometimes a deep run it works, but if you have a centre back like Ezri Konsa who's that quick, and you have a sweeper like Emi Martinez, then that should really guard against it in theory.
Yeah, and it's something the Villa have been doing, is trying to guard against that as well by Boubacar Kamara, the definition of his position. People who listen to the podcast will think that I've gotten DMs to this fact that people have said to me, you hone in on one point and you keep on saying it until it comes true. But I think that this is a very, very, and look, I think everybody does that at sometimes, but this one I'm really, really passionate about. And this one I feel is so important to Unai Emery's tactical setup, is the fact that Boubacar Kamara's role is becoming more and more defined. And I think at the start of the season, I think against Liverpool, specifically against Newcastle on the first day, he was a bit roving. He was maybe playing as another 8 or a less disciplined 6 and going forward. Now we're seeing him pull back into that right centre back role of a 3 when we're in possession, and specifically when I suppose more so when we need to get back and get into possession as well. Now, it's a Superman's role to be able to play that, specifically if he is going to have to be in both waves of play. But he's getting more defined in that. And am I right in saying that kind of positioner, that his role is very, very pivotal to this Unai Emery system?
Yeah, it is. And you look at Kamara from when he was at Marseille, he played as a centre back sometimes. He sometimes played in a back 3, not quite in the hybrid role he is now. He was playing as an out-and-out centre back, so he's used to that. I think it also depends on what Emery decides to do. He's very clear. He's got 2 different build-up structures in a way. He's got the one where Kamara goes into that back 3, and the 2 wide outlets are the 2 fullbacks, are Cash and Luca Dean, or he plays another centre half or puts Konsa at right back, and then you have Leon Bailey out on that right wing, and Konsa would fill the space Kamara would in the other build-up, and Kamara would then push into midfield. I think Emery's probably settled on Kamara push in that back 3 at the moment, because it gets John McGinn, on the ball a little bit deeper. He can drive with it. Tillemans as well. Now he's playing really well. We can probably fit into the system a bit more. Cash is probably better higher up anyway. He doesn't have to build the play from deep. And Luca Dean is, like we've seen the last few games, he's getting so much space on that left side. Emery's probably thinking when Moreno comes back, who's probably a little bit better dribbler, a bit more of a left winger than Luca Dean in possession, probably suits the team and the players within those positions a lot more.
Absolutely looking forward to Alex Moreno coming back after the international break, because one of those things, I suppose, is that they're 2 completely different people in the way they like to deliver the ball. Obviously, Moreno likes to attack the box, likes to attack the byline. Luca Dean is not somebody who likes to attack the byline for sure. He's a deep crosser, and he's very, very good at it. And we've gotten lots of good occasions out of that this year as well. And you mentioned something there about the centre halves and stuff like that. Obviously, Tyrone Mings going down early in the season, you don't plan for that, but obviously you've got some sort of contingency. And Aston Villa are really well stacked in the centre back position. Even now, I know long they came in to supplement the back line after Mings went down. But Emery's centre back usage, I suppose, Do you think that the current usage we have at the moment between Europe and the Premier League and so on, do you think that has been forced upon him by Ming's injury, or do you think it was always really part of the plan to almost have a separate set for the group stage and for the Premier League?
I think it's a little bit both. I think it was quite clear that Tyrone Mings, even with the addition of Pau Torres, would have still been Emery's first choice centre half. And you saw in pre-season, he tried Pau Torres in that left back kind of role, because he was still trying to sell Luca Dean at that point. So he probably thought, maybe we could play Pau Torres in that third centre back, but as a left back, and then Leon Bailey or even Philogene, wasn't it, in pre-season, a little bit further forward. But obviously Mings' injury meant that Emery doesn't trust or doesn't want Callum Chambers as the fourth choice centre back, so he needed Longley. I was quite surprised they went with Longley, because he's basically the same player as Pau Torres, just a little bit worse. I thought they might go for something a little bit quicker or something a bit more defined. Longley's a bit more of an all-round player. He's not good at one thing, but I think it's kind of worked out perfectly that they've got two different groups, like you say. But Diego Carlos is probably the closest in terms of, we spoke at the build-up structure just before. If he comes in, that means Collins will shift to right back, and then everything above it and Kamara will change. Kamara will go midfield. So I think they've got a real good pool of centre backs, and it's probably one of the strongest areas in terms of depth. So it makes sense really to rotate, because they're all top centre backs, aren't they, with pedigree?
Absolutely, and that's exactly it. That was going to be my next point. All of them are, well, by the time this comes out, most people will know that Ezri Konsa has now been is now in the English squad, and congratulations to him for that. And hopefully he gets capped on this upcoming run of games. Far too late for him to be called up, but better late than never, as they say. Obviously, Pau Torres in there, and Diego Carlos and Longley as well. And for me, I think, even when you think about when Tyrone Mings comes in there, there's a real leadership group within that there's a mini leadership group within there, because all of those guys. Put it this way, I wouldn't like to have to stand up to those guys and tell them they were wrong in a poorly lit bar at any stage, because I think they put manners on you very, very quickly, specifically Diego Carlos, I'd imagine. But I think as well, when we look at, we've spoken a good bit about the defence there, and I suppose the high line as well, but I think one of the traits of Unai Emery's team so far, or Aston Villa so far, has been how fluid our attack has been. We haven't had an attack this fluid probably since Brian Little, I would say, maybe going back that far when we were winning the League Cup. And even at that stage, that was just the way English football was played. It was real end-to-end stuff with fullbacks and overlapping fullbacks and trying to get your midfield into it. So in the modern age of football, I think it's even more impressive, I suppose, the way that Aston Villa are. What are we, second highest goal scorers in the league, I think, at the moment. Just looking at we're the highest. Oh yeah, second highest after Man City, and on 29 goals, having such a good record of scoring goals at home in the Premier League as well. Talk to me a small bit about the transitional play in attack, because for me, I see it as kind of a W, and I see that it's, once again, I think what Mother Wolf said, you kind of know what's going to happen, but it's very difficult to stop it because the players are so good at it. What's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, it's funny because the Fulham game yesterday on Sunday, the first 15 minutes of the second half for Fulham were pretty poor, weren't they? But I never panicked or thought this is pretty poor. Or I just thought, what, they're kind of doing it to just bait Fulham in, and at some point they're going to counter, and when they do counter, probably the first time they counter, they'll score. Leon Bailey comes on within 2 seconds. He's got an assist. It's very much, I know it came from a corner, but they do like to soak, and they've got these midfielders. Tillemans has started to do it as well now, where they win the ball back and it goes into Luiz or McGinn or Tillemans, and that first pass is all out under pressure, is always forward to one of their runners, Diaby or Bailey, who drive the ball. Watkins, goal scorer number 9, gets in the box, goal. And it happens quite a lot. And, Emery's always been quite a transitional coach. I think he's been unfairly, maligned at times at previous clubs in terms of being, part of the bus. See, back when that couldn't be further from the truth. It's just because he's very good at, he wants transitions. He kind of generates transitions because he wants to win the ball deep sometimes. So, I think it just gives a different string to the bow. And like I say, you conserve energy levels as well if you keep the high line, but at the same time, you see possession, you don't quite go press from the front, you win the ball back, and then bang, there you go, you're away and you're capitalising on the space left.
And it is important. I think it works well. That was going to be my next point as well. What I've seen is I think it works well with the high line because the spacing between midfield and the back line is very important, specifically the 6s/8s, the Douglas Luiz's, the Boubacar Kamara's, really. And we see that as well. We see that when Pau Torres gets the ball and the triangles we can play, trying to draw people into the middle. You mentioned there that Villa were quite poor in the first 15 minutes. I think that when Villa go out to play, specifically in an attacking point of view, I think I have a theory, and it's the closest thing to a theory I think I'll ever have. I think the Villa have scripted moves, and the way that they move up the field at times, I think, can be scripted. And ball dominant teams should be like that. If I was a top class manager and I wanted my team to be ball dominant, I would think it would be crazy not to have the first 5-10 minutes mapped out in my mind. If we get the ball, this is what we want to do. We want to suck them into these areas to see where the weakness is. Suck them into these areas. Try this way. Okay, that's not working. Let's regroup, but be patient. And we see Unai Emery on the line the whole time shouting for patience to try and find where the hole is going to be. So my theory is that the first 10-15 minutes of games at times are actually scripted in Villa's mind, that these are the areas we're going to attack. Sometimes it doesn't work, and then sometimes it does. But the reason that I'm mentioning that to you is it puts an awful lot of pressure on the likes of Douglas Luiz, who for me is a top, I'm going to say a top 3 midfielder in the Premier League at the moment. Mm-hmm. He's that good. If the worst was to happen and Douglas Luiz was to decide in January, guys, had enough, want to move, I don't know how we would replace him within this team at the moment. Am I being hyperbolic? Or do you feel the same that he holds that weight within this midfield?
Yeah, he does, and that's why Emery's so, to coin an Emery phrase, demanding of him, because he just absolutely everything. Even when they're winning, even when Douglas Luiz is playing well, he's screaming at him. I was at Stamford Bridge when Villa won. I'm sat 3 or 4 rows above Emery, and the whole time, there's no other play. He's just screaming at Luiz. Luiz comes back, but he's telling Luiz, because he knows that Luiz can change the game in terms of he can just keep the ball, take that extra touch. He can slow it down. He can win the ball. He's so central to everything. But like all good coaches, if Luiz did go, I'm sure a lot more than 60 million, like it's been reported in some people, in some places, he'll just adapt. He'll change the way they play. There'll be less of an emphasis on the centre midfielders. He might not go for a double pivot with Kamara and another play. He might then move it into a 4-3-3. He might get McGinn a little bit deeper. He might buy a player who is experienced, not quite the same as Luiz, but got similar characteristics. I think there's certain things. I wouldn't be surprised if Luiz does go next summer. We don't like to talk about the elephant in the room, but FFP is still a live aspect. Luiz is one of the most valuable players in the squad, and I'm sure that Villa have got a recruitment team now set with Monchi and Emery and Vidagani, where they're probably already eyeing up the next target. So yeah, Luiz is so important, such incredible footballer, but these managers, top managers, they know how to adapt. They know how to change the style, and you never know. It could be that the fact that Pau Torres starts to become a little bit more direct, misses out midfield, and starts to play channel balls or whatever. There's certain little nuances that can completely compensate for Luiz.
Yeah, and I think, like a lot of people say that, do Villa have a plan B? Beginning to hear that a small little bit recently. Do Villa have a plan B? And I'm a bit poo-poo-ish of that, and I kind of dismiss it a small little bit, because I think the Villa do have a plan B, for sure. It's not as apparent, but you can see that they do tweak and change tactics, even when, like Zaniolo, the way Villa play with Zaniolo in the field and the way Villa play with Leon Bailey in the field are different, the way that they build up, because they're different types of players, and they obviously, we play 3 at the back, sometimes we play 4 at the back, and there are differences as well there from the plan A and plan B, and I would expect nothing less from Unai Emery in that aspect. But another area I think that Aston Villa have, I suppose it's a big talking point, I suppose, amongst the Aston Villa fans, are set pieces in general. With Aston Villa, I think that we've probably been the most creative with our set pieces this year than we have probably since I've been following Aston Villa. There's been some real very much training ground kind of situations. I'm absolutely blanking on a goal we've scored from a set piece right now to give an example. But we've had some weird and wonderful set pieces, which I think have been really, really good.
Yeah.
Where do you think the set pieces fit in with Unai Emery's overall, I suppose, vision for the team, or are they an interesting wrinkle that's brought by Aston McPhee to the table?
Yeah, I think one thing that Emery's done a lot better this time around than Arsenal is probably delegate a little bit more. He's got this obviously close Spanish circle of coaches and people around the club, and I think it's testament that speaks volumes that he's decided to keep Austin McPhee. He obviously sees huge value in him. Austin McPhee's not alone. He's got a coach with him that helps him with set plays, and you think how much detail that must take for two guys. Their full-time job is to analyse dead ball situations. It's pretty remarkable. You saw it the other day. I think one of the first half corners, Douglas Luiz picked the ball up and put it both in his put the ball above his head. It's that type of sign that they work on religiously. Matty Cash says they introduce 4 or 5 before every single game, and these are meticulously drilled. These are looked at, trying to design to expose the weakness of the other team. Emery obviously has a say in it, but I asked Emery about this, and he says 80% of it is McPhee, 20% is him. So I think that kind of gives you a good understanding of the balance between both. But there's times where Emery probably looks at one of the plans and thinks, I don't want to do that. That doesn't give me the type of control I want. And he'll veto it. Saw the other yesterday, actually, indeed, they had a free kick in the attacking half. And I think that they were designed to go long. But Emery said, no, we're going to play short. We want to get a bit more control in this first half. And that's probably his decision. So, it's Austin McPhee's obviously doing very well. And I do think more goals will come from it. I think Diego Carlos scored against Alkmaar from it.
Yes.
So, I think I wouldn't be surprised if come the end of the season, they're in the top 6, top 7 for goals scored from set plays.
And actually, that's a good game to actually highlight, because Leon Bailey took a lot of the corners from Villa's right, Alkmaar's left, and usually that would be John McGinn's purview, would be to take corners from there, or another would take the corners from there. But I thought Leon Bailey's delivery was really good. I thought it was really consistent, as in he went to the same spot 9 times out of 10, and that was interesting, because obviously there's nobody getting the ball from our left hand side from an in-swinging corner there. Douglas Luiz is taking the corners from our left hand side whenever they go there, and we know what he can do. He can ping him in the back of the net, essentially, from that side as well. So it's good that we have that variation, and keeps teams guessing as well. I think it does, even though sometimes we don't score. 9 times out of 10 we don't score, but I do think it keeps teams guessing. Very last piece, and just because you mentioned it there a moment, and I didn't send it to you as a question, I might ask you a moment ago, the structure. I don't think there's probably anyone better to ask than yourself, because you've been in and around obviously Unai Emery, and you get to go to games and you get to see interactions with people. That structure that he's brought in, obviously Johan Lange is gone, Frederick Leith is gone, and it's Monchi, Vidagani, and Unai Emery in there now, along with the beneath can't think of his name, the other person that Unai Emery brought in there. That structure is very much entrenched in the Unai Emery and the Monchi way. Is that something that you always felt was going to happen when these guys came in over the course of the summer? Was there murmurings that would all happen? Or has it, I'm trying to look for a bit of a salacious piece, was it a power struggle at any stage? Do you ever get that feeling?
I think it's natural that, Emery's a coach that, as Vidagani said in an interview, he said to me, he's learned from Arsenal, and at Arsenal he felt that sometimes everything wasn't in his control, because Emery is a manager that is completely football, doesn't care, doesn't know about anything outside the immediate bubble. That's why he needs the guys that he trusts and relies on, that won't, I'm not saying stabbing them back, but they know how he works and they know what he wants. So at Arsenal he didn't really have that, and that's why I was quite surprised when he did get sacked, because he thought, hold on, I thought everyone's going in the same direction. He brought obviously Monchi and Vidagani, and Monchi's this high-level operator, very well-known, renowned within Europe. He'll want his guys in. He's got a very distinct way of working. Whenever new people come in, a new regime comes in, the older people, all the people that are in the structure, either got to adapt, or quite rightly, they think actually this new way of work is not for me. I'm good enough to get another job, and I will do it. And that's obviously what Rob McKenzie's done. The completely different ways of working. They're targeting different players as well. It's all these different ideas, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It's not so much a power struggle. It's more that Villa want to move in one direction, and that is to give Emery all the tools they possibly can to make sure he's successful, and they keep up pace with him because he's ambitious. He likes to talk about, we don't want to get top. We're not a top 7 club. Our target's to break.
Yeah.
We all know he is desperate to get into Europa League, Champions League. He wants to do it quickly. He's not going to be hanging around trying to go from 9th to 8th to 7th to 6th. He wants to get there quickly. And the way to fast track it and to catch up is got to have the guys he knows in there to push. Obviously, it's a risk because if all of a sudden Villa lose 10 in a row and he gets sacked, there's a massive hole that's going to be left because of all the people we've brought in. But at the same time, this probably gives him the best chance of success and immediate success. So, yeah, I don't see it as a problem at all as long as Villa keep doubling down on Project Emery, so to speak.
Yeah. And one last question for you before I leave you, because you mentioned Project Emery there, and obviously there's a project at a higher level as well with V Sports. It seems like there was a time there last week where you opened up the Twitter, and there was a spurious link to Aston Villa taking over 2 clubs, or not taking over, but getting into partnership with 2 other clubs. One being Real Union, Unai Emery's club that he owns, the Emery family own in Spain, the Spanish 3rd division, and then. Correct me if I'm wrong, or if you've heard anything like this, but I've seen it on Twitter, and I don't know whether it's real or not. So I suppose I'm really asking you: is it real? That Algerian club, whose name I can't pronounce as well. There's an Algerian club that Aston Villa were linked with forming a partnership as well. Do you know anything of where we are with those, or where the club is with those partnerships? And I suppose, is that a signal that there are more to come?
Yeah, in terms of the first link with obviously the Emery link, that is true. It's obviously discussions have been going on. In terms of everything else, it's quite well known that they even admit themselves they've been looking at clubs across different continents. They want to grow different styles of play, different background players. They want to become a real rounded multi-club or model of fee or partnerships. There's no point getting into partnerships with 2 clubs in Spain or Portugal because they're basically producing the same type of player. So it's important that they cast the net as far as they can. Obviously, the Emery link is quite clear why that's happening, but also I think because of the close relationship between Emery and his brother and Aston Villa, Villa probably or V Sports probably has a better idea of what they're getting themselves into as well. So yeah, that's obviously the long and short of it. They've obviously got another club in Japan as well, so they're opening up all these different markets, and this is not going to be something that you'll see immediate success from in 2, 3, 4 years. It's going to be longer term, and I think essentially they want to make sure that Villa can sustain themselves, and if they can sustain themselves through other clubs that within the umbrella, then that's absolutely fine.
Yeah, and that other club, I had to Google it there because it would have rotted my brain for the rest of the evening. It's Mouloudia Club d'Alger, one of the most prominent clubs in Algeria. Also have into the partnership with Aston Villa as well, and they're actually a funny club from the point of view of not funny at all actually, but an interesting club because they're like Aston Villa. They too won the African version of the European Cup back in the late 70s as well, and have been prominent within the league, but seem to be a bit of a sleeping giant within Algerian football previously as well. So I did a bit of reading up on them, but their name did escape me. So once again, and Algeria seems to be a hotbed for footballers. North Africa seems to be a real hotbed for football at the moment. The Under-17 World Cup is on at the minute. I was watching a bit of it today, and I was reading up a bit about some players from that part of the world that could hit the highlights really soon. Apparently, Barcelona are doing Trojan work in scouting areas like Mali, and find that Mali might actually be a footballing hotbed in the near future as well. So that was something I found as well, albeit Mali is exactly not.
Villa have actually bought or got three Somalian kids into the academy as well. So you've got all these different hotbeds of talent that are going into Europe, and I think it's really exciting, isn't it? Just and purely because it will influence probably how football is and the different styles and players that come across in the next couple of decades as well.
Absolutely, yeah. The more the merrier. I could have been the next Pele, only I wasn't nurtured. That's what I always say to him. I still have the potential, but I don't think it'll ever be unlocked. And that's the same for anybody else out there, And there could be the kid out there that never gets his chance, but that's what casting your net wide has the best potential, I think, for sure. Jacob, thank you so much for joining me today. I really, really appreciate it. Really appreciate all the work you do with Aston Villa for the Athletic, and there's probably going to be thousands of people out there that listen to this that are kind of going, I want his job. I'd love to have his job. So, fair play to you. You're doing a really good job. It's difficult to come in after Greg did such a good job. But, I hope Greg won't mind me saying this, but I think, as everybody does when they come into a role, they try to elevate it. And I definitely think that you've done that in your way as well. So thank you so much for all your coverage that you do for Aston Villa.
No, I really appreciate it. It's been, honestly, the reception and the feedback I've had has blown me away, to be honest. I think it's always easier when a team's winning, so I kind of put it down to that, and the feel good factor. But yeah, I really appreciate it, and I think there's I've got a lot of big plans and things that I want to do in the next couple of months that I've not had the chance to yet. So I'm just looking forward to seeing how the season goes and what else happens, really.
Absolutely, and we're looking forward to seeing what you bring to the table over the next few months as well. Looking forward to those ideas. Well, thank you so much, Jacob. Everybody, go get on the Athletic. If you're Athletic, have some of the best articles, they're really measured articles. Put it this way: I joked about clickbait at the start of the podcast. You won't get much of that on the Athletic anyway, and that's why I love it, and that's why I pay the subscription for it. Because it's nice reading, and it's well thought out reading as well. So, if anybody there is thinking of getting that somebody you love something nice for Christmas, maybe a subscription to the Athletic might be something that might go down well in your household. But Jacob, thanks again thanks a million once again, should I say, for your time. And everybody else out there, thank you so much for your time as well. And we'll be back again very soon. I don't know when this podcast is going to go out, so I'm going to be very honest. We'll be back again very soon with another podcast. And in the meantime, stay safe, stay healthy, and all that's left to say is up the Villa.